Welcome to Zentiva Sustainability Podcast. At Zentiva, we believe that each and every one of us can contribute to taking care of our planet and do what we can to protect it so that future generations can enjoy life as much as we do. We act today for a sustainable tomorrow, and as part of our environmental pathway, we find it important to educate and empower our associates, and we warmly invite you to join us and follow our new initiative, the Zentiva Sustainability Podcast, with a series of episodes where experts explain different areas of environmental protection.
My name is Samuel Medvedsky, and I'm a communication manager here at Zentiva Slovakia. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about sustainable architecture, and therefore it is my pleasure to welcome here today with me Mr. Igor Bubenik, who is head of ESG team at Slovak development group Corwin. Together with his team, he is behind the multiple award-winning ESG report. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Bubenik.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I hope you're going to have a great time with us. I have a few questions for you. So let's start with the first one. What do you think are the key principles behind sustainable architecture, and what is the impact on the environment?
It's really not an easy question because sustainable architecture can be described differently by different people. Especially in our company, we've sort of came to 5 principles that we try to guide our projects by. And that's what we think is like a holistic approach to sustainability. So for us, sustainable project means that it's healthy, it's green, it's compact, it's diverse, and it's flexible. And what do I mean by that? Healthy, it means that the project creates spaces that promote the well-being of residents, that provides opportunities for sport and recreation, opportunities to, commute in a different way on a bike or on foot, that it has features like green roofs, green public spaces, that it cares for biodiversity and improving the air quality in the city. Compact, meaning that it's optimizing land use and material use so as to reduce urban sprawl and reduce commuting distances. Diverse, because of course what you're trying to get to is a mixed-use development so that you have different functions in a single place. So, you can live there, you can work there, you can also do some shopping there or some recreation, and you don't need to use your car every day. And flexible, because of course what's really important with development projects or with architecture is that it's lasting, and as the functions in the cities change and the needs of the cities change, the buildings have to adjust. You can't have a sustainable building that you have to tear down in 20 years because you require a different function. But really what's important with these principles is that they don't work just in a vacuum for architecture. They only work if they're applied to the whole city. If you have a highly sustainable building, let's say in Detroit, and everybody who works or lives in that building has to commute for 2 hours by car, it's not a sustainable building. And if you have a very average building in Copenhagen where everybody cycles, it's going to be way more sustainable, and it's going to be way better for the citizens and for the city. But maybe some of the simple things that we do on our projects that also then has impact on the environment, both natural environment and the environment in the city, are things like green roofs, which can reduce the temperature of the roof by 25 up to 40 degrees, which we measured in the summer, which has impact both on the overall heat in the city and on the energy consumption. So that's a huge thing. Similarly, we use rain gardens, which can capture, hundreds of thousands of liters of water every year and prevent it from going into the sewage system, prevent it from being wasted. And what we also saw is that in our buildings, which we focus on being sustainable, we have very high satisfaction of tenants and residents, because in the end, it's also about making the building better and making it more optimized for everyday use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what about materials? Which materials are being used and are they fit for the circular economy?
Well, you have a lot of innovative materials like recycled steel, recycled concrete, and to some degree they help the problem. But of course, steel and concrete have a massive carbon footprint. And when it comes to construction, you can't actually use them for all the materials. You're not going to have 100% recycled concrete building because recycled concrete has different tensile strength and you can't use it for the load-bearing materials. So you're always going to be producing some new concrete, for example. And then there's things like cross-laminated timber, which is essentially wood. And that can be considered a fully sustainable or circular resource because, of course, wood is the only construction material that we can actually grow indefinitely and that even has the potential of consuming carbon and potential to consume more carbon during its growth than is used for the construction. So I would say wood is so far the only material fit for circular economy, fully circular economy. But that's of course restricted by norms. Like for example, in Slovakia, we can only build 3-floor buildings from fully wooden construction materials, which is insufficient because, of course, in the city, you need a certain level of density for it to make sense financially, but also socially and from an urbanistic perspective. So it's limited country by country how sustainable or how circular the materials can actually be for the construction.
Could you share maybe some examples of landmark buildings that embody sustainability and are there any lessons that can be learned from their design?
Certainly, there's a lot of buildings that are considered sustainable or that are often, used as an example of sustainability. One of them is Bosco Verticale in Milan. It's a very famous building. If you look at any presentation about sustainable architecture, it's probably going to be on the title slide. And it's essentially a tall tower or 2 towers which have very large planters on the balconies that have fully grown trees on them. So you have this effect of creating a vertical garden, hence the name. But from my perspective, it's not really a sustainable building. It's green, but it's not sustainable. First of all, it uses a huge amount of concrete, which, since you want trees on the facade, it's even increasing the amount of concrete that you need for construction, which means higher carbon footprint. Then also it means you have low insulation, so the thermal performance of the building is worse than an average new build. So you have higher impact and then also a higher everyday cost for maintaining it and for producing more carbon. So that's maybe a lesson of a building that's considered sustainable, but in the end, it's really the opposite. What we've learned from our projects is definitely that location is often more impactful than the design itself. For example, we've constructed Einpark, which is considered the most sustainable building in the city, and we constantly try to measure all the impacts it has on the environment. And one of the things we found is that even though we created really great hubs for like cycling, for pedestrian use, for public transport, still more than half of the emissions of the building are in the commute of the people who go to the building every day for work. And if you build a very sustainable building, but you locate it maybe on the periphery of the city or in a location where most people will commute by car, it's not going to be sustainable. It's going to probably be, in numbers at least, it's going to be worse than just the average building in the correct location. So really, it's that good urbanism, good location is more important than technologies or design. And the same goes for actually how the building is being used, because we often find that if you have a building that has sustainable technologies, but the users don't actually know how to use them, the impact of them is going to be minimized. That's why, like, for our tenants, we create manuals, we create lectures, we do workshops, and we try to teach them how to actually behave in a more sustainable way, because only that way you can actually improve the performance of the building. So really, a lesson that would be main from our experience is that you have to think of how people use the building, and you have to think of how to make sustainability more convenient and cheaper rather than how to make more technological advancements. Because in short, if you make cycling really cheap and really easy, everybody's going to cycle to work. And we can see that in the Scandinavian countries. Even though you have terrible weather, everybody cycles to work. And, opposite way for us, we actually have really good weather, but because of the way our cities are built, people use non-sustainable methods, and the impact of the architecture is also lowered.
That's super interesting. Thank you for that, Mr. Bubenik. And thank you for your time and very inspirative insight. I wish you all the best in your work at Corwin and in all the ESG and sustainable matters. And thank you also, dear listeners, and see you at the next episode of Zentiva Sustainability Podcast.